Many people have this wrong idea that when a child repeats what you say, it means they don't understand you. They think it means it's because the child cannot comprehend your question. Why children do this? I know you want to get the solution. I know you want to know how to help your child stop doing this repetition, because sometimes it's just so much and you're trying to get their language out of them, but they're just repeating, and it might be a little frustrating. I know, I understand the frustration, but before we get into what you can do, you have to really understand why. Because you're dealing with a brain or a nervous system that thinks and works differently. If you don't understand how that brain works, you're not actually helping them. You're just putting band-aid solutions. It's like all your life you were a dog person. When you were a child, you grew up with dogs around your house, you knew how to take care of them. And suddenly, when you're an adult, you've given a cat. So you can't take care of the cat the same way you do a dog. You have to understand how a cat thinks and how a cat processes and how they sense the world. It's very similar. You know how people talk. You've seen a lot of examples. You've been talking. So you understand language is a certain way. But it's not the same with all children, and it's definitely not the same with Gestalt language learners, because it's like they are coming with a different operating system. Now, when I'm talking to you, you're understanding what I'm talking. And if I was talking to you in person, you're going to respond to me also. Now, what really goes on in the mind? How is this language, going from hearing to responding? So when you hear somebody talk, it goes to your ear. And in your brain, there are two main areas where language is understood and formulated. So one is behind your ears, it's called the Wernicke's area, and one is a little in the front called the Broca's area. Now this area is for understanding language. Whatever I am speaking now, this area of your brain is actively working to understand the meaning of all the words and what I'm trying to tell you. Now if you're going to respond to me after I've spoken, from here, that information goes to your Broca's area, and then from here it goes to your nerves, which tells your mouth how to move. Now this is the speech chain. So when I'm talking, this area of the brain is working to understand. Now what happens in children who repeat language? Does it mean that the language is not going to the understanding center of the brain? No. Remember how I told you, when I'm talking, this area of your brain is getting all the words and extracting the meaning. This is called word retrieval. This is how it happens in typical adults. But in Gestalt language learners, actual language is not stored as words. They are stored as chunks. They are stored as gestalts. That is, they are stored as the whole sentence or the whole phrase or the whole dialogue. Word by word knowledge is not yet developed. So in their Wernicke's area, they are retrieving gestalts. They are retrieving whatever matches what you've already told. It means that your child is still building meaning. They are still in the early stages of their Gestalt language learning. Because they are in the early stages, they have not yet gone to that third or fourth stage where they understand individual word meanings. So they're just repeating as it is heard, because their Wernicke's area, let's say, is full of gestalts. It's full of language they've heard everywhere. So when it goes from your comprehension area to your expression area, whatever gestalt is already there that is relating to what you just said, or there is no language on how to answer your question. So the expression area is just repeating what they heard. You have to understand here, the main point is they have the question. Maybe their comprehension of Wernicke's area is full of questions, but they don't have the answer. So they're just repeating the question. Let's take an example. Your child is watching TV and they've been watching for a while now. So you're going to turn off the TV. So you take the remote and you're asking, shall I turn it off? Now this is a question. It's a very simple question only, and your child doesn't know how to answer this question. So what they do is they will say, shall I turn it off? Because that's what you said, and that's the gestalt in their mind. Now it seems like they're saying turn it off, but they're saying it in a very agitated way, like turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. Like, they are saying they don't want you to turn it off, but the language says turn it off. So it's like, it's the opposite of what they really want. They're not saying that, they're just repeating that last part of your question. Does this mean your child doesn't understand your question? No. Your child is clearly communicating through body language, but the words are a mismatch because they don't know, they don't have the gestalt They've not gone to the third or fourth level of Gestalt language processing where they have individual words yet. Their comprehension area has a lot of gestalts now, like phrases and sentences, and a lot of intonation based words, but they don't have the answer. So, what do? I'm gonna tell you. But I really want you to understand why they are doing this and what's really happening in their brain when they are processing language, because only then can you consistently help them in the right way. Otherwise, you're going to do what I say for 1 day or 2 days and then you stop using it, because you may not understand how your Gestalt language learner is actually taking in, processing, understanding, and expressing. This also happens when some children, they know they are not supposed to hit others or maybe push, and you've told them no hitting, no pushing, but when they are hitting, they say no hitting, because that was the language they heard in that situation when it happened. So they are associating the meaning of wanting to hit with no hitting. So what you're doing is, your job as a parent is really valuable here. Not just a parent, even if you're a therapist watching, or any language that your child hears is the language that they are taking in and using. So what you talk is the language that they are learning. So in the communication loop, if you had said, should I turn off TV? No hitting. That becomes part of that language loop for that situation. So what happens is that language gets stuck sometimes. And many Gestalt language learners, they really want to learn language and they really want to talk. So they are looking for language from you to learn. And when you say these 1 or 2 phrases, they catch on to it and they will say it every time in that situation. Now you know that when your child repeats what you are saying, it's because it's the only available language that entered their speech loop that they have, so they're just repeating it. The most important thing here is not that your child cannot learn the answers. It means that the answer was not available to them. And if you keep asking the question, many times we do this, if your child is not answering, we keep repeating the question. And you know what that does? It actually strengthens that loop, because they don't have the answer and you're going on repeating the question. So your child thinks the question is the most important part, or the question is the one they're expecting from me, or this is what I should be saying. So they very strongly repeat the question back to you. The most important point, even if in this whole video, if I want you to take one point home, it's that the more questions you feed into your child's speech loop, the more questions you ask, the stronger the question repetition becomes. It seems like you're trying to help, but actually you're increasing that immediate echolalia if you keep repeating the question. Let's come to the solution. You know that you are the language model for your child. Is their learning language that you speak for this situation, and they connect the language and the situation and they learn. So if you ask a question, they're going to learn this question for this situation. So instead, you give the answer. You can do this in 2 ways. One is before asking the question and one is after asking the question. So I know if I tell you don't ask questions, it's going to be very hard for you, because even it was hard for me when I was a therapist just out of college, because that's all we knew. We are supposed to make the child talk, so we have to ask question and somehow get that answer out of them, right? But now I have done a lot of self-learning and reflection within my therapy. I understand that questions are not helping. They're just increasing the difficulty. So before you ask the question, let's say the same situation we'll take where your child is watching TV and you want to turn off the TV, but they don't want it. So, and you know, like when you take the remote itself, they'll start observing you like, oh, what is she going to do? Is she going to turn it off? Might be they'll start saying. So, you've not yet asked the question in the situation. But you can see very clearly the discomfort your child is feeling towards turning off the TV. So, before asking the question, you are looking at your child, you're looking for body cues, voice cues, their facial expression of what they are thinking or what they are wanting. So here in this example, it is they don't want you to turn off the TV. So before asking the question, you give the answer. You say, I want 5 more minutes. I want 5 more minutes TV time. In the second example, how this looks is, let's say your child is hitting another child and you want to say no hitting. But you have to think of their needs. What do they want in this moment? Maybe they are annoyed by the other child. Maybe the other child is taking their things. Maybe they don't want to be there. So, in that situation, you are anticipating based on their body language, that is, they don't like this. So, immediately you say, I want to leave, and take them out. And you look at your child and say, I want to leave, and take them out. Let's take another requesting example. Maybe you're asking your child, do you want to have dosa or idli today? And they are saying dosa or idli. They're not giving you the answer. But you know that maybe your child likes very crispy dosa, or they like idli with a certain curry or a certain chutney. You know what they like. So you go near them and say, I want crispy dosa today. I want crispy dosa today, and just wait, and they will repeat what you're saying. And here what they're actually learning is they're learning language on what to tell. So in all the three examples, they are learning, okay, if I want dosa, I have to say it like this. If I'm uncomfortable in this situation, I have to say it like this. If I don't want my mom to turn off the TV, I have to say it like this. So they're learning what to say. You're giving them language to learn to use, that you're putting inside their speech loop. So they learn, okay, in this situation, we have to say it like this. So you're asking your child, shall I turn off the TV? And they're saying, shall I turn off the TV? Then you say, no, mama, 5 more minutes. No, I need 5 minutes. So I'm asking the question and I'm giving the answer a few times. So my child knows this is the answer I need to tell. So in the second situation where your child, let's say, is hitting and saying no hitting. So in that situation, let's say you said no hitting and your child is saying no hitting. Now then you go next to them and say, I need a break. I need a break. I need a break, and then you take them out of that place. In the third example, you've asked, do you want idli or dosa? And your child says idli or dosa. Then you say, do you want idli or dosa? I want dosa. I want dosa. This is the solution. The solution is to give your child the answer instead of repeating the question, or instead of even asking the question in the first place. You have to anticipate based on their emotion and based on the situation, what your child likes, what your child is going to ask for, and then give that language. Or if you've asked the question, give the answer a few times and make them repeat the answer, through which they are going to learn how to answer this question. Here I want to talk to you about Speakaroo, which is a speech therapy app that I created. In this app, we go through different scenarios in a child's life, like school, home, playground, ice cream parlor, and different places. And instead of asking the question, we create these game loops where in this situation, we give the child this type of language to talk. So your child can learn what to speak in what situations. So if you have not downloaded Speakaroo, I'll leave the link in the description. Go check it out.